are loading into Blackburn LE, where in the bottom left-hand corner map, spawning all the way in the bottom left-hand corner, the Blue Zerg player coming out from the land of France, representing Team Oplon, as well as Cocas Authentic Pepite. He is Denver.
And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of Blackburn LE, we have the Russian Protoss player. He is red, representing himself. He is Strange.
Gotta be honest, Light, I was so worried that I wouldn't be able to say Cocas Authentic Pepite
Oh,
today.
it's terrifying.
And then I noticed, and then I noticed that we get to cast Denver again. I'm like, yes.
Oh, good. You were worried that you weren't going to be able to say it. I'm just worried about saying it, period, because I didn't.
It's fun to say.
It is fun. It is fun to say. It's a fun team. It's a fun team, definitely. But you know, Funada Coca a little bit because you have Denver as well on KAP. Mate, what about DNS? Just saying. Just saying.
No Protoss. Only Marine Lord and Denver.
Apparently. As we are getting into this game, and a very interesting map choice for map number 1, we have been seeing a lot more Blackburn here in the EU group stage.
Yeah, the winds are finally changing.
Yeah. A surprising amount. We've seen this almost every single series, so I'm pleasantly surprised. We'll see if anything comes of it. If you remember, Denver previously against Raynor wanted to go for a gold base. We were denied that, and at the moment it does seem like standard openers, so nothing crazy going on again.
Yeah, I guess he decided to lose his mind going up against Raynor, which you kind of have to do when you're up against the favorite of your group, but now that, as we were mentioning, it's two players who are very much neck and neck. P, I don't want to say has a chance to relax, because the fact that it's so neck and neck has got to be a little nerve-wracking, but he knows that he doesn't have to rely on any gimmicks here.
Yeah, I hope Denver going up against Raynor earlier today, it was a way for him to like take the edge off, you know?
Yeah.
And again, be able to more comfortably dive into this PvZ. It still is a ZVP, and there's a lot of Zerg players that don't necessarily enjoy this matchup, but we'll see what Denver's approach to Protoss is. You know, is it going to be a Roach Ravager Queen Walk? Is it going to be a Roach Ravager Ling Bane Flood? Is it going to be something else completely differently?
Well, I don't know about you, Light, and I'm not sure who vetoed which map here in this series, but every time I see Zerg on Blackburn, I always think Roach Hydra timing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure Oreo's done that before.
Multiple times, yeah.
Yeah. So we have seen some Hydra timings on this map as well, again, because of the short rush distance by ground. We'll see if Denver decides to go for that, or if he decides to pull a Stefano on us and kind of just expand, be defensive, and go to the late game.
Oh god, I think I purged that series from my memory. Oh yeah, it was definitely a series where Stefano allowed, I think it was for Jimmy.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was a Protoss player to just come into him every single time and just trade very efficiently.
Yeah, Stefano never had a head-on engagement. He always did like Ling Bane run-bys because he focused on melee upgrades and just defended with everything else. It was an effective style, but a very slow style. So,
yeah, effective is probably the right word for it.
Hopefully we don't quite see that, as we do not see double Stargate. After the first one, we do see a transition into a Twilight Council, followed very quickly by a Forge.
Interesting. So it's not just Zerg that wants to take advantage of the short ground rush distance here.
Yeah, I'm really curious as to what this Forge is going to be for. Like, time and time again, oh, we see a Robo as well. So Strange, he is transitioning into a more Grand Focus army.
He's actually going to get upgrades from that Forge. Who'd have thunk it?
I know, it's crazy. Like, time and time again, Yaku and I were used to Protoss players just getting the Forge for cannons, and they just hurdle up, get Void Rays, get shield batteries. But it makes sense for him to change things up on Blackburn, right?
Yeah, the most different map in the map pool. May as well play a style that's a little different to suit that.
Exactly, as he's going straight into Charge Lot Archon. Plenty of gateways on the way. We have the Templar Archives on the way as well. It's going to take a while for all this to kick in, but Denver's just joining up at home, so he should be able to safely transition and get up into all these Zealots.
Oh, yeah. I can sense that beef wave approaching, like, Chargelets, Archons after this Warp Prism, and after maybe an Observer or two, there's nothing stopping Strange for going into Immortals, or if he so desires, a Robo Bay for Disruptors as well.
Yeah, if the game lasts that long. Like, I'm a little bit concerned that Denver still hasn't scattered anything. He doesn't know. Obviously, he knows that it's a Void Ray first, and he knows it's not double Stargate because he's only seen a single Void Ray, but he doesn't know if there's going to be an Adept follow-up or straight into Charge Lots. You know, he could go full Darkness or just do something crazy and go into Blink Stalkers. He is in the dark. We do have a spotter Ling, and oh, the Ling does spot the War Prism. Up.
Doesn't know. Either way, he's going to be repositioning a couple of units to his main, I imagine.
I would hope so. I mean, we have Queens here at least, but Queens are not going to be enough to deal with all these Zealots. Again, the Zealots are going to deal quite a bit of damage here as we see a massive warp in.
And Denver's not quite in position. Massive warp in of Zealots, as you said, plus these two Archons.
Oh, exactly.
A lot of damage potential right now as Denver weakens up the Zerg army before a fight even begins.
Yeah, and you know, oh my god! The War Prism! The War Prism gets picked off, but at the same time, the Zealots were in the mineral line. 5 workers do go down. We do see a recall though, and Denver, 5 workers at acceptable damage. Acceptable.
Yeah, I feel like I may have spoken too soon there.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how many Queens were chasing down that War Prism and how deep that and how low that War Prism got before it was trapped in a slow zone. 5 drones at this stage of the game, like you were saying, completely acceptable losses. Denver hasn't even remade them. He doesn't need to. He's still on 70 workers, which is exactly what you want in the mid to late stage of a CVP.
Yeah, and now Strange is in a really rough place because he was working up towards that massive kind of surprise move, and it didn't deal the damage it needed to. On top of that, the War Prism got sniped with 2 Archons within it. Like, that was a massive loss there for Denver, as we can see when it comes to the resources. Meanwhile, we have a Muta transition. A transition that hasn't been scouted. Archons do well against them, but there's only 1 Archon.
It's only 1 Archon, and Strange is just about giving up on the Archons too. He is getting blinks, so a quick warping of Stalkers can be an effective deterrent, but that's still a long ways off.
Yeah, exactly. Like, these mutas will deal some damage. You only need 5 to 6 to start one-shotting that. They'll do. There's plenty here to one-shot workers. We are going to have a couple of cannons being thrown down in the mineral lines to be safe, but the cannon isn't going to be done because the mutas are already here.
Even if it was done, without a shield battery, these mutas can still dip in and out of the mineral line.
Exactly, and worker after worker is being focused on. We do have a warping of Stalkers, but again, Blink isn't done. They do have +1, but we see that is not going to be enough. The cannon even gets focused down.
Cannon gets focused down. 11 probes get taken out. He even scouts the Robo Bay and sees it researching. He could go for it too, if he so wanted to, but he doesn't want to take that risk.
Yeah, exactly. Instead, he's content with 13 workers. He's also distracting this entire Protoss army. Meanwhile, at the same time, the Road Ravager is going to be hitting the gold base. It does get spotted, but
Void Ray? Void Ray? Will back out in time.
Jesus Christ. Thankfully, Strange was looking at that moment. Meanwhile, again, his main army is honestly lacking a little bit. I wouldn't be opposed to this Road Ravager force just hitting the 4th, maybe even hitting the 3rd.
Well, Denver's already maxed out, and Strange is still about 60 supply off from that. There's a lot of opportunity for Denver right now. Building up a bit of a bank, not a massive bank, so he still can't afford to throw away units like you want to in the late game of a ZVP, but he can still get a lot done economic-wise.
Oh yeah, that he can. Denver is having a hard time pushing into this army despite his massive supply lead, but at the same time he doesn't have to because you know what, the mutas are still doing fine on their own.
4 more probes, just like that. I don't think a mutalist has gone down yet. The Void Ray's in trouble. The Void Ray's in trouble. Not anymore.
Yeah, the shield batteries do keep it alive for now. Meanwhile, at the same time, the Road Ravager finally hits the gold base, takes out the mineral line immediately. Oh my god.
17 probes! Wow. Not quite able to take out that Nexus, but at this point, it doesn't really matter too much. Denver is up 20 workers. And a base.
Oh yeah, Denver can do whatever the hell he wants at this point. The mutas are going to get taken out, but you know what? The mutas have already done their job. They've already paid for themselves. Denver is up on bases, his gold, he's got his 5th up and running, and transitioning into Hydra, Lurker, Viper.
Yeah, I'm still not entirely convinced when it comes to the ratio of roaches, and there we go, he's sending his roaches out for a run-by, just refining his army for more and more.
Yeah, he wasn't convinced either. He's like, yeah, you know what, Yaku, you're right. Like, these roaches, they're not gonna do me any good. I gotta get rid of them. Let's just go trade and get as many probes as I can.
Like so.
Exactly. Meanwhile, we have more lurkers, more vipers, upgrades are on the way, groove spines. The one thing that is lacking a little bit for Denver is creep spread. It's just barely hitting the middle of the map, so it's not ideal, but at the same time, like, that's like the only thing really going against Denver.
Pretty much, and hitting the middle of the map is just about what you need on Blackburn. Obviously, you want to spread the creep as far and wide as you possibly can, but you know, if you can control that choke point, sometimes that's all you need, because that's where a lot of fights can happen.
Definitely. Meanwhile, we do see a blink on forward. Nice. One of the lurkers does get picked off. Where are the Vipers, by the way? There we go. They're finally joining the fray. We have a bit of a recall here, as there was that roach run by hitting the gold base.
Clearing up more supply. Strange has been able to catch up, though, when it comes to the army supply.
Yeah, it's just
Denver
about...
does... Yeah, Denver does still need to be a little bit careful with how he engages.
Yeah, like, he has, like, the quote-unquote numbers. The problem is, like, look at what kind of army this is. You know, 2 Abducts, and there's no more Colossus. And then you're just stuck with basically a gateway army. Like, it's not necessarily what you want. What do you want? You want disruptors. You want a transition into Skytoss, right? Into carriers. Meanwhile, oh my... Oh, God.
The lurkers on top of the ramp shred through the Stalker buffer. Pretty good. Abduct. 1 Viper will go down, but 2 Vipers still have plenty of energy. Look at the blinding clouds drawing the ground army closer and closer to the lurkers, and everything gets eviscerated. I feel like Strange underestimated the amount of lurkers Denver had on top of that ramp, and just like that, he has to call GG. Denver up 1-0.
GG. Well played, Denver. And again, as we saw, even though the supply, the soup, doesn't lie in that kind of sense, it did kind of lie, right? Like, it was deceiving, you know. The numbers were close to each other, but when it came to the quality of the army, it just wasn't there for Strange at all. Yeah,
that's really something that you have to sort of measure on your own, because the game ain't going to do it for you.
Yeah. And as you said, like, maybe a little bit, yeah, I don't know, like, the decision to commit and push up that ramp, like, there was nothing forcing Strange to fight there. If he wanted to, he could have backed off, could have blinked away, you know, traded off a couple of Stalkers here and there and tried to transition out, but there just was no transition. There weren't any more Stargates or Fleet Beacons, additional Robos for double Disruptor production or something. It just wasn't there.
I think it was a bit of a combination of he wasn't necessarily all in, but he took a lot of damage throughout that game, and just sort of thought, you know what, I have to at least get a base of yours or something, otherwise I don't favor my chances in a longer game. Eventually you're just gonna outmine me, and also potentially he didn't expect that many lurkers on top of that ramp. The blinding clouds too, on the choke point, just forcing the Stalkers to get closer and closer. It was brilliant from Denver, how he played that engagement.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, Denver had his way with Strange there, you know, not just with the mutas, but even before that, shutting down that War Prism was huge. And from that point, like, he had so much freedom to do whatever he wanted. Oh my god.
And now we'll see if that continues as we load into Lightshade LE in the bottom right-hand corner map, spawning all the way in the bottom right-hand corner. The Blue Zerg player coming out from the land of France, already up 1-0 in this best of 3. Just needs un momento. Representing Team Oplon, as well as Cocas Authentic Pepit, he is Denver.
And spawning in the top left-hand corner of Lightshade LE, we have the Russian Protoss player currently down in this series, but not out. He is red. It is Strange.
All the chips are on the table, I guess you could say. This is the most important match. Even winning a map isn't quite going to cut it, because this is the tiebreaker, essentially.
Yeah. Exactly. God, I feel so anxious when it comes to this. I want this to at least go to the ace match. But Strange has to come up with something else. Like, it doesn't... The previous game, it didn't feel like he was able to really play out his game, right? He had an initial strategy, he tried to execute it, and as soon as that failed, like, he was just in crisis mode, trying to catch up constantly throughout that game, and just couldn't do it. Hopefully he has a little bit more success here. I'm really curious to see what his opener this time will be.
Yeah, that definitely felt like a bit of a very map-specific build from Strange. I fully expect something a little different here, but then again, Lightshade also has a pretty short rush distance, so I wouldn't be too surprised if he goes something a bit more gateway focused again.
At least when
it comes to the transition.
Yeah, I was also surprised when it came to the way he executed that, because we've seen Zest do something very similar, where he comes across the map just the same way with those charge lots, but he throws down, he has a sentry as well with the War Prism, and then he force fields the ramp, and if your opponent doesn't have any Ravagers, or even if they do have Ravagers, it becomes difficult for them to break in, and then you can take out the main base. It's a little bit more committed, but I mean, Strange was committed as well with what he did, so...
He was.
Yeah.
What if Strange focused on fighting the queens instead of breaking off to attack the mineral line? Do you think maybe he could have taken that engagement?
Maybe. It would have all depended on Denver and his ability to transfuse, right? It would have been on him then at that point. So because of that, potentially he could have done more damage.
Ish.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I guess that's neither here or there. That was game number 1, and now we are in game number 2, and we have a Twilight Council opening.
Yeah, I was kind of convinced that we would get the Twilight Council eventually, but I thought it was going to be another transition, Stargate into Twilight. This time, Strange decides to just cut out the middleman.
Oh boy, we're going to be seeing some Glaive Adepts on Lightshade. The most important question is, how many gateways are we going to have at the moment? Only 3.
Not the most committed to Adept build yet, but we'll see if more gateways get thrown down.
I imagine they will. So depending on how many gateways, we'll see how committed this is going to be.
Global facility.
Yeah,
he's got to get a War Prism, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. So we're going to have a War Prism on the way to just zoom across the map. Meanwhile, Denver hasn't seen this, but he will be tipped off once his Overlord doesn't die. Because...
Pretty much.
Yeah. Otherwise, there should be a Void Ray coming out. We have a Forge?
What?
Okay. What?
So, he won't be able to get as many gateways out. Is he going to be using this Forge just for cannon, so does he actually want upgrade swiftness? Because if he gets upgrades, that is going to be such a commitment to Glaives.
Yeah, I'm perplexed at what we're seeing right now, just because typically when we see a Glaive opener, the transition out of that, once it doesn't kill your opponent but maybe deal some damage across the map, is we see, Immortals being popped out with sentries, we see Disruptors, right? It looks like he may go for something like Blink or Charge after this.
He's getting +1 weapons already!
Yeah. Again, it's not going to help the Adepts, but it will help the follow-up, right?
It will. And ideally the Adepts at least survive, right? To be able to keep Denver back while Strange is transitioning to Charge or Blink.
Yeah. This is so quirky. I kind of like it. And he didn't go for the War Prism. Again, he's just threatening with these Adepts. He shouldn't be committing to the Shades. But at the same time, I feel like he needs to. Like, he got Glaives. You got to do something with your Adepts, right? Otherwise, this could have just been vanilla Adepts. Just threatening like this.
Pretty much. And then you could have just cut out the middleman and gone straight into Charge or Blink. But actually, Strange hasn't gotten another Twilight upgrade yet. 5 more gateways are getting thrown down.
Oh my god.
It can't just be more Adepts, right?
It could be. It'd be weird. It would be weird, but yeah, I mean, it would make the most. You're not gonna warp in slow zealots, for example, right?
You're not.
Yeah, so
and I feel like getting another upgrade might take a little too long.
Yeah, we do have all 4 gases taken though, so this could just be for more sentries, maybe some stalkers as well. This is a very committed 2-base all-in coming out from Strange. Meanwhile, on the side of Denver, at the moment, he's focusing purely on defending against these Adepts. Ooh. They do not commit to the shade, but unfortunately, like, Denver is still in the dark. He hasn't seen this.
Yeah, trying to defend purely against Adepts may actually come back to bite him as more roaches come out, and that's exactly what the Immortals want to face. Thankfully, he is making a massive wave of Lings.
Yeah, the problem with what's happening right now, and I have to be a little bit critical of Denver, is that because there's no Void Ray, there's no reason not to scout, right? There's nothing to stop your Overlord from just slipping into the main base. So, unfortunately, again, he hasn't seen too much. Here we go, though. The Lings finally do spot the rest of the Immortals. Oh my god. War Prism's on the way, and then Strange is going to pull the trigger.
I wonder if he's shaking his head right now or scratching his head.
Yeah, and Denver's taking this very seriously. We do have a Spine on the way. We already have Ravagers, Roaches, Lings. He just has to be careful not to be force fielded out. Like it's gonna be all about those force fields.
Will as much as possible. Denver wants to find open ground. A couple of force fields do get thrown down, but they aren't really the most devastating ones. A couple of sentries get picked off. More force fields get thrown down, but not at the time nor the place that Strange wanted them to be at.
Exactly. That was a beautiful...
barely any entry on them.
Yeah, that was a beautiful engagement there by Denver. Again, the force fields almost did nothing. Meanwhile, we do have the sentries going down one after another. The Roach Ravager is getting on top of the army.
He even gets the War Prism with the Corrosive Biles. The Immortals get taken out. GG. That's how we end that series? Alright.